Also, dann herzlich willkommen bei Europe Calling. Europe Calling ist ein internetbasiertes Diskussionsformat. Herzlich willkommen erstmal an Agnieszka, die ist das erste Mal dabei. Das ist die 35. Folge. Wir haben schon viele tausend Teilnehmerinnen und Teilnehmer gehabt. Das ist der Versuch, Leute aus der Politik, Entscheidungsträger aus Brüssel, international, in direkte Beziehungen zu Menschen zu setzen und eben nicht einfach nur zu Zuhörerinnen und Zuhörern zu machen, sondern euch direkt ins Gespräch zu bringen mit Menschen, die auf der internationalen Ebene Politik machen. Und natürlich haben wir alle über die letzten Monate mit immer weiter wachsender Sorge die Bilder aus Hongkong gesehen. Wir haben ein China, zwei Systeme, wichtige Versprechungen durch die chinesische Regierung an die Rechte in Hongkong mit Bürgerrechten, mit starken Wahlrechten, die zum Teil bis heute nicht erfüllt sind. Wir haben starke Polizeigewalt gesehen, eine breite Bürgerinnen- und Bürgerbewegung, die im Vergleich unglaublich friedlich geblieben ist. Gleichzeitig sehen wir eben, wie in vielen Ländern der Welt, Bürgerrechte, für die gerade unsere Partei mit dem Bündnis 90 im Namen auch steht, wie diese Bürgerrechte unter Druck kommen. Und natürlich müssen wir uns fragen, was tun wir in Europa, was tun wir in Deutschland angesichts des Verfalls von Grund- und Bürgerrechten oder dem Nichtgewähren von entsprechenden Rechten und der Befürchtung in Hongkong, dass die dort errungenen Rechte irgendwann verloren gehen und wir eine Art von Ein-China-Politik, aber nicht mehr mit zwei Systemen bekommen. Und wir müssen uns auch fragen als Deutsche mit unseren starken wirtschaftlichen Interessen in China, ob es der neue Standard ist, dass wie es etwa der Vorstandsvorsitzende von Siemens, Keser in China gemacht hat, zu beschweigen und schön zu reden, was in China selbst passiert. Von daher bin ich froh, dass wir das jetzt hier diskutieren können. Ich bin nicht ganz so froh, dass Joshua aus Gründen, die wir nicht verstehen, jetzt nicht dabei ist. Aber insofern gebe ich so erst und direkt das Wort an Agnieszka Brugger. Ihr beschäftigt euch schon lange damit. Ihr habt auch die Bundesregierung immer wieder an ihre Verantwortung hier erinnert. Agnieszka Brugger ist die Koordinatorin unseres Arbeitskreises für internationale und europäische Politik. Du kannst das besser sagen als ich im Bundestag und hast daher dort auch eine besondere Verantwortung. Agnieszka, wie siehst du die Lage in Hongkong? Was kann Europa, was kann Deutschland tun? Agnieszka, du hast das Wort.
Dankeschön. Erstmal auch einen schönen Abend von meiner Seite, aber vor allem auch Dankeschön an dich, Sven, dass du dieses wichtige Webinar zusammengestellt hast und auf den Weg gebracht hast. Und ich hoffe auch sehr, dass wir nochmal die Gelegenheit bekommen werden, vielleicht doch noch von Joshua Wong im Laufe der Zeit eine Einschätzung zu können. Er wird sicherlich Gründe haben, warum es jetzt an der Stelle nicht funktioniert hat. Uns im Bundestag hat die Situation in Hongkong wirklich zu Beginn der Proteste an sehr beschäftigt. Und es geht da vielen Menschen, die auf der Straße standen, ja, über 1 Million, während weltweit alle das Neujahr gefeiert haben, gab es wieder riesige Proteste, die größten, glaube ich, überhaupt, weil sie für ihre demokratischen Rechte eintreten, weil sie Angst haben, dass es einen falschen Weg geht, dass eben der chinesische Einfluss immer größer werden wird und es damit auch ihre Freiheiten, ihre Bürgerrechte, ihre Mitbestimmung noch mehr unter Druck kommen, als sie es ohnehin schon in den letzten Monaten waren. Das Horrorszenario ist natürlich ein brutales Eingreifen direkt des chinesischen Regimes mit beispielsweise militärischen Mitteln. Das wäre natürlich ein massiver und furchtbarer Bruch des internationalen Rechtes. Wir sehen, dass China seine Kräfte in Hongkong verstärkt hat, auch an der Grenze versucht, auch da militärische Präsenz und Stärke zu zeigen. Aber wir haben bisher nicht gesehen, dass sie direkt militärisch eingegriffen haben, was aber schon natürlich krass ist und was wir massiv kritisiert haben, ist auch die Polizeigewalt, die die Demonstrantinnen und Demonstranten dort erleben und uns mit sehr, sehr großer Sorge erfüllt. Und in einer Zeit, in der wirtschaftliche und geostrategische Interessen dominieren, glaube ich, ja, es ist total wichtig, dass in jeder Diskussion, in jedem Format, dass es zwischen der deutschen und der chinesischen Regierung gibt.
Excuse me, Agnieszka, I see now Joshua has just joined us. can we welcome him? And may I interrupt you briefly, Agnieszka? Welcome, Joshua. Can you speak to us?
Yeah, hi. Can you guys see me? Yeah, because
not yet. We hear you excellently, but we can't see you yet. You have to switch on your video transmission.
Please wait me for a few seconds. I need to arrange with those complicated technical problems. Please wait me for 10 seconds. Wait a moment. Sorry.
No problem, Joshua. You cannot believe how pleased we are. We believe in Germany. We are so backwards when it comes to internet and digital. We have horrible public services in this regard. And that you have now more problems in Hong Kong than we have in Germany. We are happy about this. Sorry, it was stupid German joke. Welcome, Joshua, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation and sorry for being late. And it's my honor in the midnight of Hong Kong time can share and update more on what's happening in Hong Kong with the humanitarian crisis and how we fight for democracy and freedom in the past half year.
Thank you, Joshua. Perhaps also a word from Agnieszka, and I will then, I guess it's in our common interest to give the floor first to Joshua, listen to him first,
yes,
and then
of course.
But you can see now Agnieszka Brugger, she's our spokesperson for international and European affairs in the Green Group of the Bundestag. Myself, I'm the spokesperson of the delegation of the German Greens in the European Parliament, and we are really honored that you take the time in a moment of crisis in Hong Kong at midnight of your time to speak to us. So therefore, we are really pleased. And for us, this is the sort of global civil society which we would like to build. Agnieszka and myself, we have both our own background in civil society before we joined the Green Party in Germany. You are on the other side, part of a civil movement and also part of a political party in Hong Kong. And we would like to hear from you. First of all, what is the current situation? How do you assess the state of your movement and the reaction of the state? And second, what do you expect us from Berlin, from Brussels to do? Well, how can we be helpful to support the civil rights and democracy movement in Hong Kong? So thank you for joining us, Joshua, and we are now pleased to listening to you.
Hong Kong is the global city with around 7 million population that determined to fight for freedom and democracy. In the past half year since June of 2019, with more than 2 or even 3 millions of population took to the street to show how we deserve freedom and justice. Our short-term goal is urge the government completely withdraw the evil bill. The mid-term goal is urge the government to stop the police brutality. The long-term goal is to fight for freedom and universal suffrage, which means that the government of Hong Kong should be elected by people. It's lucky that around September of last year, we successfully forced the government to withdraw the evil bill. But later on, how Hong Kong and Beijing government transformed our city to be the police state is just continue to let us suffer in humanitarian crisis. In the past 7 months, more than 7,000 people were arrested. Youngest one at the age of 11, oldest one at the age of 84. More than 2,000 of them were prosecuted. Some of them might still just primary school student or high school student, but need to face the riot charges that might lock them up in prison from 5 to 10 years. And in the previous day, the government might still only targeted hardline activists. But in the past few months, we just experienced the escalation of police violence. How they use more than 30,000 canister of tear gas, rubber bullets, and even use live round to target the activists is what realized by the international community. At the same time, first aider, journalists, and even doctors were also arrested during the protests, and even how riot police stormed into the campus 2 months ago really shocked a lot of people around the world. we continue to fight for democracy, and now is the difficult time for us. But I think we are just really asking some humble demand that is not extremely go too far. If great city just like Berlin or New York, people get elected their own mayor, so why can't Hong Kong? I think the only reason behind is how Hong Kong people is under the interference of Beijing and under the control of those Beijing loyalists. So in 2020, I'm also part of those activists being arrested and prosecuted, and also have the possibility that might need to serve jail sentence again in 2020. In 2019 June, I was still in prison. But I hope in 2020, more people around the world, not only from the Western country, from America, but also in Europe, in Brussels, in Berlin. I hope people in Europe, especially in Germany, they can realize more about the threat and the interference of the sharp power of Beijing. And it's time to show the global solidarity to stand with Hong Kong. And I hope one day Hong Kong people can be the one who enjoy freedom and democracy, freedom from fear. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. If I may ask, after what you have expressed in very condensed words, of course, I can assure you, I think our common solidarity. When you are saying you want global solidarity, what do you expect from the European Parliament, from the Bundestag, from our government, from the European Commission, from businesses from Germany and Europe doing business with China and Hong Kong? What do you expect in concrete terms?
Human rights and democracy should not be override by business interests. And it's time for the Parliament in Germany and in the European level can also recognize the threat of China to prioritize the human rights condition, not only in Hong Kong, but also in Xinjiang, Tibet, and mainland China. In a more concrete level, I think how European countries, some of them might be the allies to support and to provide equipment for the Hong Kong riot police, no matter the water cannon, those equipment, weapon, or etc. I think those issues should be recognized by the European community. I hope in 2020, when Hong Kong riot police continue to use live round, use the water cannon, use those weapons to target resident civilians in Hong Kong, we can have more people around the world. They can issue statement and also condemn and send a clear message to Beijing. Hardline suppression is not the way out. Political crisis must solve by political system reform.
Thank you. I would like to give now the floor to Agnieszka. What is your view on what Joshua has just shared with us and the demands he has put forward?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah.
Can you maybe?
Yes, I was saying.
I didn't hear the last 2 seconds.
Yes. Could you respond to what the situation Joshua has just described and to the demands he has put forward in very modest words? But what is your response from Berlin?
But first, I want to thank you, Joshua, for his very important insights, and far more, of course, for his activism and his fight for democracy under difficult circumstances. And we, as German Green Party in the Bundestag, introduced a resolution about the situation in Hong Kong. My colleagues Jürgen Trittin and Margarete Bause are really doing an extraordinary job to raise awareness for your situation in Hong Kong and give the protesters a voice in Germany. And I was really sad that we wanted to make it an all-party resolution. We had some, in the speeches, some strong statements also of the other parties that support your issues, but they didn't want to make a common resolution. I think it would be a really strong sign, and we hope we will get that goal, that we will have a joint party declaration. It would be very, very important for us. We also say it's fine that the foreign minister made a picture with you, Joshua Wong, and he showed in this way that he supports your demands. But on the other hand, and the Chinese were really furious about that, on the other hand, it's not enough to make nice pictures. And we want and demand also in this resolution that human rights exactly as you said, have to be part of every discussion with the Chinese government. And it's not like you can have a dialogue on security and a dialogue on business. Human rights belong at the center stage and are not a part only for backroom discussions. And so I think this is very, very important. But I think it's also important, and that's what we want in the resolution too, to stop export of technology that can be used to violate civil rights or as part of surveillance programs. And we also demand and want that the German government uses its position as whole the next EU-China summit to make it a precondition that there has to be a good and peaceful solution for the conflict in Hong Kong before we can have a successful summit declaration. I think this is also a very important instrument, and we will keep pushing the German government to do more, to be more clear on this topics and issues you have. And we and I also think it's very important that the federal government also makes it very clear to German companies that they cannot anymore ignore human rights issues in Hong Kong, but also, as you said, in Tibet, and also in Xinjiang, and this has to be part also when you cooperate in the economic sector.
Yes, so I would like only to make a quick remark and following up on what Agnieszka said, and already introduced that this is normally a format where participants and citizens have their say. So if you would like to speak to Joshua and Agnieszka, then please raise your hand with the hand symbol, and you can, I can see already some doing that, and I will try to give as many of you the floor as possible. But this means, of course, you can also speak German. This will then be translated simultaneously in writing. Joshua, I hope you have the document, which you can find under the chat function. There's a link, and you can then read the simultaneous written translation if some may choose to speak German. But I would like only to say that our demands here in the European Parliament are very similar. We had a common resolution. We have also made clear with the Sakharov Prize to one of the leaders of the Uyghur movement that there is a high degree of concern when it comes to fundamental rights with regard to China. I also have to say that what I think is what you are standing for, Joshua, and your movement, is you are defending values which Europe stands for. They are in our constitutions. They are in the Treaty of Lisbon. They are in the basic fundamental rights we have secured on the level of the Council of Europe, and they are obviously also enshrined in international law. And therefore, what you are standing for is basically you are fighting for values which we recognize as ours. And therefore, it's natural that we should stand up for them. It's also true and important to say that also in Europe, even on another level, but they are under threat. So not all of these rights which we have in our constitutions are guaranteed in the real world. So we have our own threats, and we should not say that fighting for these values is something which is happening in Hong Kong, and we have no problems. We are the good ones. We have the same problems. Look to Hungary and look to some other European countries where some of these values are under pressure. And we recognize your fight as also ours. And I can only say that we believe it's time to be more outspoken and more clear for European leaders, not only for the parliamentarians, but also for the Commission and the government. Of course, I have to say, what comes to the police equipment, when it comes to the police equipment, this is the very minimum of an economic consequence one should be ready to concede. Yes, so I will now give the floor to some of those, if you agree, Joshua, or do you want to share something with us before? Otherwise, I would now give the floor to some of the participants. What do you prefer, Joshua?
I can say a few words respond to you. What's my point of view?
Please.
I strongly appreciate how the Green Party in Germany is always the party showing the strongest support to Hong Kong democracy movement, especially a few minutes ago when we discussed about the resolution in the German parliament, how other party, they also show their support to Hong Kong, but when it comes to the bipartisan resolution, they might have different kind of political consideration, kind of political burden, or etc. But I always recognize how actions speak louder than words. So I really hope in the upcoming future how the Green can also show the collaboration and interaction with activists from Hong Kong democracy movement. And I also look forward to how to share and update more in 2020, how to share more of my insight of how to keep the momentum to let the protests in Hong Kong being heard not only in Asia, but also in Europe, in Germany, and etc. And I welcome different kind of pressure right now.
Thank you. Thank you for these kind words, and we hope that we deserve them, and will do what we can in order to deserve them also in the future. I would like now to give the floor, first of all, to Karl Weigel. Let's see whether that works. Karl? Okay. Now the second here is Manfred Klingschad. Manfred Klingschad, hören Sie uns? Do you hear? Yes, his microphone is activated, but at the moment he doesn't speak to us. So let's wait. Sometimes people are not used to these sort of webinars. So now I have another person whose name is more difficult to pronounce, B. Den Fell.
Yeah, I'm here.
Ah, hello.
Can I talk? Hello,
Yes.
This is Bianca Denfeld. A question to Joshua. Do you expect the Chinese government to the elections in Taiwan? We have to be prepared. Thank you.
Joshua?
Okay. As we know that this Saturday is the upcoming Taiwan presidential election. In the previous day, we always say that today Hong Kong, tomorrow Taiwan, which means that we're strongly afraid that a failure of one country system in Hong Kong might implement in Taiwan. But instead of taking this kind of negative approach, I hope to emphasize more about today Taiwan, tomorrow Hong Kong. I hope one day Hong Kong people can, just like Taiwanese people, enjoy the right to elect their own government. And I think the result of this Saturday is really critical, because if KMT win in the election, will Beijing continue to strengthen its hardline policy and its co-optation in Hong Kong and Taiwan That's the issue that we might look forward to. But I believe the people in Taiwan, through their vote, they must show how they wear the marks to defend their fundamental rights and defend their dignity with freedom and democracy. So I look forward and always encourage more Taiwanese people vote on Saturday to show how Taiwan is the democratic country.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So I'll have a try with Hartwig Bürgerholz. Your microphone is open.
Yes, thanks. Hi, Joshua. I'm an old China hand, so I took part in the first demonstration in Hong Kong after their handover, just in the course of the 1st of July in 1997. We went to Let's Go and protested for the Hong Kong's rights. So I support your fight completely. You mentioned that you have as a long-term goal this so-called double universal suffrage. From my point of view, I would like to ask you, do you think that is enough? Shouldn't it be that all the democratic forces develop some kind of a concept or maybe of a vision for the future of Hong Kong, which is based on free and democratic elections?
Joshua, please.
Okay, Hong Kong people continue to fight for freedom and democracy for more than 3 decades. We of course know that free election is the first step. How to enhance Hong Kong to have more social justice and equality is what always we ask for. But I will say that I born a year before the transfer of sovereignty. I born in 1996. Frankly speaking, when I was still in kindergarten or in primary school, none of us imagined Hong Kong would turn to be the war zone under the hardline suppression from the riot police. So how to continue our movement to keep our momentum to ask for free election, to elect the chief executive, the administration of Hong Kong is extremely important. But later on, how we continue to show that apart from the political fundamental rights, we can also push forward the social reform to let Hong Kong to be the global city with upward mobility and equality, and being recognized by the international community is also the goal that we cherish. Yeah.
So, Agnieszka, please raise your voice if you want to come in at whatever stage. Otherwise, I will open up to Anton Malina.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi. Yes.
All right. My question is to Joshua concerning police forces which have already been in action, arresting people and so on. Are these police forces controlled by Hong Kong government or by Chinese government? And related to this question, if we want to take action from the European Union, which of these governments should we address?
So the riot police in Hong Kong already override the authorities and the power of Hong Kong government, and absolutely they are under the command and loyal to Beijing government. I would say that I would appeal to leaders and politicians of European countries should stand with protesters in Hong Kong, especially I think how with the riot police and the police brutality being recognized by leaders around the world, no matter Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act and the Global Magnitsky Act should be executed, and also take reference by European country how to sanction those riot police in Hong Kong and let them to realize that even they never receive any punishment in Hong Kong, they still need to face the pressure in the international community. I think that's the direction that we try to push forward.
If I may follow up with one written question which has been shared with us here, and that is, I paraphrase, by Christoph Wein, saying that there is a threat for those Hongkongers and democracy activists which are in exile or even have applied for asylum, even in Germany, even in Europe. Joshua, are you aware of dangers to people who are in exile or under political asylum in Europe or in Germany? And what do you expect our authorities to do in order to ensure the safety and freedoms of those in exile?
Some of the Hong Kong activists travel to Berlin or Germany to seek for political asylum before the movement start already. And what I hope is, apart or other than concrete political asylum, how to reduce the requirement and the restriction of the student visa application. I think it's more easy to let more Hong Kong youngsters that are under threat from Beijing and Hong Kong government, if they could study abroad, spend few years in Europe, in Germany, or in Berlin, at least with the student visa to get the study, to get a master degree or etc. I think it could concretely help more of the youngsters in Hong Kong. It's hard to imagine how high school student or 16 or 18 years old kid that need to spend 10 years in prison, as the one who have been locked up in prison for a few times, but totally only spending around 120 days in jail. The price I pay is just a small piece of cake. So how to reduce the restriction to apply for student or working visa for Hong Kongers that are under threat from Beijing? I think that's the more possible approach that we hope to figure out.
Perhaps I can pass this question on to Agnieszka, please.
Yeah, I think this is a very good idea Joshua introduced to us, and we gave the activists he spoke about a stage at our discussion about the massacre of the Tiananmen place. And what I really think is very, very important, and that's also one of our demands in this resolution I already mentioned, is that there is an independent investigation of the police brutality in Hong Kong. That's what's really, really important, especially when you want in the next step to punish those who are really responsible for it. So I think this is a demand of the movement that is very, very important and needs internet more.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I will now try to give the floor to Markus Schäfer, but his microphone doesn't agree with me. You have to switch on your microphone first.
Can you listen me now?
Now, yes. Please, Markus.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so let me ask quickly. I mean, you feel like there could be also international activists be used in Hong Kong? And as a second question, you also feel like how to convince people on the mainland to also join your movement? Is there some strategy or ideas how to gain their hearts?
With the landslide victory of the district council election in late November, more than 85% of the seat in the council won by pro-democratic camp, which just proved the silent majority in Hong Kong. They are the ones support protesters. But with the Great Firewall in mainland China, I think it's really difficult to let them support the movement directly, because with a lot of fake news and misleading narrative provided by Beijing officials, it seems that they might have lost of hesitation with the Chinese nationalism or the patriotic ideology. But I hope, just like how the Berlin Wall fall 3 decades ago, I really hope the Great Firewall in mainland China one day can also fall and let the people live in mainland China experience the free flow of information and the truth and the importance to understand the need to have universal value, just like freedom and democracy. But no matter what it happened, we will continue to seek for support for people who live in Hong Kong and also mainland China to endorse our movement. And just like when I travel to Western world, when I have some of the lecture or the conference sharing in university, always I will also share more of my insight with students from mainland China.
Yes, so there are two more written questions which I would like to put to you. One I would only first put to you, it's by Martin Harder, and it's asked, how is your fight seen in mainland China? So of course, in a certain way, you're also mainland China. So is it meaningful anyhow? What is the degree of access to information about your movement and your protests the rest of China on the mainland has, and so what is the feedback you are receiving? And second, there are more people raising the question whether Hong Kongers in Germany feel safe when they protest. So therefore, I would like to ask Agnieszka, what can Germany do? What can German authorities do to make people in Germany feeling more safe when they protest about the situation in solidarity with the movement in Hong Kong? Also, this question is, of course, to you, Joshua. Do you hear from those in exile or studying or for other reasons being in Germany that they feel under pressure to basically enjoy the freedoms they have when they live in Germany and protest? So Joshua and then Agnieszka.
For Hong Kongers in Germany join the protests, they also under the pressure and the threat from Beijing, especially when they travel back to Hong Kong and to join the protests, because the mass surveillance system in Hong Kong is really terrible. It's set up by Beijing authorities, and with the facial recognition system and etc., it's easily for the pro-Beijing camp to spot out which Hong Kong people live in Hong Kong or live around the world have engaged in the protests. So with this kind of mass surveillance system, always explain the reason why protesters need to wear masks when they join protests. At the same time, how mainland Chinese people, some of them, they might send message to me to show that, to say that how they endorse and support the movement. But even when they come to Hong Kong, they need to really keep low profile, because some of the mainland citizens, because of they endorse the movement, they were already locked up in prison for more than half year already. So I think with this kind of situation and the threat, it's a bit difficult for us to spread the truth, especially for people who live in China. Always they can receive lots of information about the protest, but always is the fake news, just like how they will blame Joshua Wong, me as the one untrained by US Marine, one of the CIA agent, being born in Vietnam, controlled by the Western world, is the puppet of European Union or etc. So I hope one day with the concrete information, we can let them know more about what's meant by universal value.
Just before I give the floor to you, Agnieszka, could you clarify a bit, because that is rather shocking. What you are saying is, when Hong Kongers or others protest in Germany, they are nevertheless under surveillance, which then is, and the information gathered in Germany may well be used in the framework of the mass surveillance systems in place in Hong Kong. This is a pretty stark evidence you are sharing with us. Could you clarify that there is proof for this, and I would be very interested in the response by Agnieszka on this.
How pro Beijing newspaper, they send some of the agent or spy or journalists, and that's the newspaper funded by Communist Party of China, and send the correspondent to Germany and to try to follow some of the iconic Hong Kong activists based in Germany, follow their daily life and etc. to try to have the track on them and etc. I think that's the issue that we experienced in the past half year, and not only in Germany or in Berlin, even when we have the delegation travel to United Kingdom, also have team of those agents follow us in London or etc. day by days, and even wait our delegation downstairs at the hotel. I think how those information is not only used to report in pro-Beijing newspaper, also will send to the mainland authorities is the things that we worry the most.
Agnieszka?
Yeah, I think I hear this, and I'm very concerned, and the German government should be too. And I think that you and your colleagues, they can assess the situation better, and that Germany has the duty to protect the people who fight for democracy also in Germany, so there has to be done something that has to be taken very seriously, and it has to be taken on the highest governmental level. And I think we must do more on this, and it's not linked with that. But in Germany, we saw an assassination done by a Russian agent a few weeks ago, and there has not been yet a really strong reaction in Germany towards Russia. And I think it's also very important that it's very clear that Germany protects the life of everyone who is military, and so this has to be taken very, very seriously. And let me add one thing: as we did a resolution on the brutal treatment of the Uyghur minority in the Bundestag, there was an official complaint by the Chinese ambassador because he argued that we were meddling in their inner politics. What more is meddling in inner politics than trying to spread fear to surveil people who fight for democracy in Germany and another European countries? So there has to be a strong reaction by the German government and the other European governments towards China on that matter.
Yes, I would then like to give the floor to Tess Lütikus. Difficult to pronounce. Tess.
Hi, thank you so much, Joshua. I was wondering if there are any stories or narratives that you feel might be lacking in European media that we should maybe put more emphasis on to get the whole picture about the situation in Hong Kong.
Thank you, Tess. Just a moment, Joshua. I would like to give also the floor to Klaus von Wahnen, who is the last who has pointed up, besides those where the connection didn't work. So,
Hello?
Klaus.
Hello?
Hello.
Hallo? Kannst du mich verstehen, Sven?
Klaus,
Hello?
deine Webverbindung ist schlecht.
Jetzt? Könnt ihr mich jetzt verstehen?
Let's try.
Hallo? Könnt ihr mich jetzt verstehen?
Ja, ein bisschen.
Jetzt?
Sprich einfach, wir versuchen es.
Ich mache mir Sorgen auch über die Gewalt auf Seiten der Demonstranten. Und ich mache mir Sorgen über Unternehmen wie Huawei in Deutschland und den Einfluss bei Daimler. Konntet ihr mich verstehen?
Yeah. Okay, so Klaus was saying he has three areas of concerns. First, he's also concerned when it comes to the violence on the side of the protesters. So is there a reason for his concern? And he's also concerned concerning the influence of Huawei and equally the influence of Chinese interests, mainly in Daimler, so the large German car maker. So Joshua, do you have comments on these two questions by Tess and the questions from Klaus?
Hello? Sorry, can you repeat the second question? I know the first question is about the violence issue.
Yes, Klaus von Warnen was saying he's also equally concerned by the growing influence of Huawei. There's a big debate.
Oh, Huawei, okay, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, my Chinese pronunciation doesn't exist at all. I really have to apologize. And second, he's equally concerned by a growing Chinese influence in the Daimler Corporation, which is obviously one of the big German industrial players, a luxury car maker mainly, hopefully changing its business model in the future to a more sustainable path. But beyond that, can you respond to these concerns and the question which has been raised by Tess before?
Okay. We recognize how force were used by protesters in the past half year in Hong Kong. When protesters use force to defend themselves with the self-protection initiative or etc., they need to face the risk to be arrested and prosecuted. And that's why more than 7,000 more than 7,000 people were arrested. And I expect in the next 1 to 2 months, the total number of arrest persons will increase to 10,000. When protesters use force, they might be arrested and need to face the legal procedure and the risk to be locked up in prison. But in the past half year, none of the riot police or police with excessive force or misconduct were arrested, prosecuted, or need to face any kind of legal procedure. I think that's the double standard of Hong Kong government, and that's the double standard of the prosecutors. And when Hong Kong people realize that the riot police and the police violence can't be solved by the legal procedure and can't solve this conflict inside the institution, they try to use force to react to the police violence. And I think that's the reason why Hong Kong will have the civil unrest and the battle on the street. That's why I think instead of blaming the victim or to criticize the protester, I think more important is the Hong Kong government must hold the police accountability. And it's a must to set up the investigation on police violence by the Hong Kong administration, by the Hong Kong government. Only provide the institutional method to solve the crisis inside the institution can be the way out. Otherwise, people will still have no trust and continue the civil unrest. I think that's the responsibility of Hong Kong government, should be responsible and accountable. And for the Huawei 5G technology issue, I think it's a bit difficult for us to describe Huawei as the state-owned enterprise. But as we all know that Huawei or other Chinese enterprise, they always will set up the Communist Party caucus in different companies. So how much degree or ratio of Communist Party or Beijing government involved in the internal decision-making of this kind of Chinese enterprise is the things that we always worry about. And I think it's a must for German government to realize that they can't use the standard protocol react to the Huawei 5G technology conflict, because it's not only about the technology issue, it's also about how the technology of Chinese government, how they might take advantage to strengthen its state power by those tech companies, and also how those protests happen in Hong Kong already happened and continued for more than 6 months or even half year. So this might absolutely continue in the next few months or in 2020. So how the world, they should stand firm and take a serious approach to support Hong Kong, or they should kowtow to China. I think that's the matter for Western world to reflect in 2020.
Agnieszka, do you want to comment or?
As a Green Party and as the parliamentary group, we've been very clear on that. And I often impression that the German government really is some kind of naive or full of fear to have a clear standpoint towards the Chinese government on that. And I'm really concerned about that, because we need, especially when we think of our own infrastructure, high security standards that we can guarantee the rights of our citizens, and that there is no political influence. And I get really angry when some people always say Germany is powerless, Germany can't do anything. Germany is a real important business player in the world. And that's one thing I think it should use more to get a clear message on human rights, supporting the demands in Hong Kong, but also protecting its own values.
I would like finally, and also to conclude, knowing that it's very late for Joshua, although he is still typing at an extraordinary speed, I would like to give the floor as the last person to Lutza Kam. I'm trying. First, you have to switch on your mic. Now, please.
Hi. Hi, Joshua. Lisa Kam here, also from Hong Kong. I live in Germany. And I have a couple of points that, I realize it's very late for you. Well, thank you very much for sharing all these opinion and your stance with us, and also for Green Party. I have a few things maybe, first, Joshua, I thought that there was a question that was posed to you by Tess, and regarding the missing side of the stories that the Europeans should be knowing a bit more. And I think it's there are actually certain internet news that are being shared around. People are actually gone missing. So young people are actually missing, and no one can find them. And then at some point, then their dead bodies are found. So I think this is never really translated in any of the bigger newspaper in the West. And this is something even more dreadful. And we should, so if we're talking about, okay, what can we do for the Hong Kong people? I think, well, yes, you can say, well, yeah, I stopped selling canisters of or water cannon or life rounds bullets to the Hong Kong police. Well, but then now they're actually replacing those weapons which are made in China, and they are even more toxic. Some chemistry PhDs, they have already tested the new kind of tear gas bombs or the cyan content in the air. It's now much higher than before. Before they switched to using the ones which they imported from China. By stopping supplying weapons, that might not be that might not stop them immediately. And then you say, well, we make sure that we issue condemns and statements, but then you have the external affairs officials from the CCP, and then they say, well, don't interfere with our internal affairs. So I really appreciate what the Green Party, especially the Green parties, especially the Green Party and the parliament members, how you keep addressing your concern and standing with Hong Kong and all that. But can we push our imagination or expectation to a bit further than this talking, so sending condemnation, saying, well, yeah, we support Hong Kong, but at the end of the day, well, the flight taking Angela Merkel from Merkel to Beijing in August was taking also other chefs, other people, other big bosses from big enterprises in Germany to Beijing to sign contract, business partnership. So can we push our imagination apart from these words? That I'm not saying that they're empty words. I'm sure at some point they could be useful, but for now, Hong Kong people need some urgent actions to be helped. So it's one of the other audience, Carl's, I think he mentioned about the violence exerted or violence by the demonstrators. But if you think about, we have bare hands, the young people, and they have nothing. They are not.
Lisa?
Yes.
Thank you for making that clear. May I ask you one follow-up question with a suggestion to be brief? If I may ask you, do you feel safe in Germany expressing your point of view in this regard?
You know what? Not 100%. Not 100%. Because you never know.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay, thank you.
This is why this is so dreadful, because we are already internalizing this fear in us that maybe I shouldn't say anything because I might be endangered at some point. Yeah. And this is as powerful as the Chinese government. And so, I think this generation's German people we are living in such a peaceful and nice environment. You know, last week it was the New Year and it was the Christmas. It's so nice everywhere. You know, everything is schön, everything is nice. So we're not used to think in this conspiracy way anymore.
Thank you for sharing this, and thank you for speaking up. And of course, it is important to us that whoever protests in Germany and or expresses their views should feel safe. That is very important, and that is our responsibility. Following up from what you were saying, I would like to conclude with one written question, which was put here in writing, sharing that with Joshua, but also to Agnieszka. Shall Germany head towards trade and travel restrictions against mainland and PRC key figures? Joshua, if you want to comment, you don't have to. You don't have to.
Yeah, because I'm turning
understandable.
Yeah. So I think with the travel restriction and certain punish mechanism, I think it is a good and first step to build up certain awareness for politicians in Germany. They must recognize that there's no free lunch in the world, and when they need to take the approach to support liberal value and democracy, they must aware that they need to take concrete action instead of just verbally issue some of the statement, showing the support on Twitter and etc. So I hope it's just the first step, but later on we can increase people awareness then and let them to understand that how to concretely to have more and more arrangement and policy to put pressure to those Beijing or Hong Kong government official or the one abuse of power with the brutal crackdown in the Hong Kong protests. I think that's the direction that we hope to figure out in the next 12 months, that when our protests must continue.
Agnieszka?
I'm not sure if I got the question right, but I think from Joshua's answer, I get the question. I think in the last year on the European level, you really established one instrument that is very strong, and I think that these restrictions for people violating human rights, they have to be held responsible, and that we should find a European antidote for these restrictions. Maybe if someone responsible and proved have to be consequences, maybe like travel restrictions or the other things mentioned.
Yes, so I would really like to send a really warm thank you and our wishes of solidarity and support to Joshua and your movement and everybody else, even if you are also a pluralistic movement. The core demands, they are our demands, and we recognize our own values in what you are doing. I would also like to thank Agnieszka for joining us from Waiblingen. It was an irony that the line to Hong Kong was much better than to Waiblingen, which shows that digitalization in Europe has a problem. And beyond that, I would like to say from a European perspective, the European Parliament will continue to fight for human rights. We will do this loudly. We had a resolution on Hong Kong in the past. We will continue to work on that subject as Greens in any case, but I think I can also speak when it comes to this for a large majority in the Parliament. I would also like to say that this year, in the second half, Germany holds the presidency of the European Council, and there will be a major China-EU conference held. Agnieszka already raised that there should be certain conditions and demands put forward because, of course, Europe has a strong interest to develop trading and political cooperation also with China. But at the same time, we want to see that fundamental rights are supported and secured. And this, the one doesn't go without the other. And lastly, I would like to say, of course, that we also expect from European and German business not to be overly shy, but to also stand by the values for which they normally declare adherence in their social responsibility statements. They cannot basically forget all these values when they do business abroad. And Europe is under responsibility to use its economic and political levers, which we hold, and we are not free of power and influence in the world, in order to support all those who fight for human rights, democracy, and other fundamental rights. So I would like to thank everybody who participated, who listened, the many who followed us through the internet, and I wish you well, Joshua, and hope, at least for you and all the others, that you can continue successfully your protests without being imprisoned and prosecuted for something nobody in the world should be prosecuted. So I wish you well, and good night. Joshua, you deserve now a bit of
Thank you.
Agnieszka?
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Tschüss.
Bye.